Hey guys, it's Casey and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a bit of a weird one because I've had a weird week, but then again, when do I ever not have a weird week? But this week's weirdness involved a chartered helicopter flight, which is the first, or at least a first in a very, very long time, and it gave me a lot to think about, and so I have lots of thoughts. Not necessarily good thoughts, but thoughts nonetheless, and so I wanted to not so much as unpack those thoughts as much as just rant about the absolute stupidity of what was said that encouraged said thoughts. Here's how it started. It is 7 a.m. on Wednesday morning, and I am at work because when am I ever not at work? Which is actually a completely different rant. Well, it's not a different rant, but it's the end of this rant that we will get into. Phone rings, ring, ring, ring. I answer it, and I am immediately greeted by an agitating, grating voice. And I don't mean that in a memey Abby Lee Miller sort of way. No, I mean that in the most literal sense of the word, in that it's 7 a.m. and I am being greeted right in my ear by a very broad American accent, which is physically agitating to my nervous system. The voice on the opposite end of the line belongs to Agent Richard Briscoe A. Yes, Agent A. I call him that because there is also an Agent Richard Briscoe B. Both work for DARPA. Both work together for DARPA. Always together. And no, I don't actually believe that both of their names are literally Agent Richard Briscoe, regardless of how many times they insist on telling me that it's just a very common name, but I digress. Agent Richard Briscoe A asked me if I'm off today. No, I am not off today. I am at work. I am always at work by design. Part of the design that he designed, I am always at work. And so no, I am not free today. But he goes, well, can you take today off and come to Melbourne? That is a stupid, stupid question. Now, half the reason that I'm pissed off about this, about Agent Richard Briscoe A calling me, is that I was supposed to go to Melbourne about a week and a half ago, and I didn't go. Completely of my own volition, by the way. I'm supposed to go every 3 months as kind of like a quarterly thing to meet with a bunch of sciencey people about a lot of different sciencey things, but I took a risk, I took a gamble, and I just didn't go. And annoyingly, Jess Levesque ended up being right, which admittedly he is more often than not, unfortunately. And I didn't really get much pushback about not going when I was supposed to. It was just kind of like a half-hearted, oh no, how unfortunate. Please come. It's going to be so disappointing if you don't nonsense. And then everyone just recalibrated and moved on, and I haven't really heard much about it. So at this point, when I'm talking on the phone to Agent Richard Briscoe A, I'm assuming that DARPA's been roped in to do the dirty work of luring me to Melbourne, because I have not heard a word from these two Agent Briscoes seriously since about this time last year. Since this time last year, I have not heard from them, not so much as a squeak. And so for them to suddenly pop up when I've missed a meeting a week and a half ago was very suspicious, because I actually have a minuscule of respect when it comes to DARPA, as much as you can have respect for a government agency, because they're just an agency of full-blown weirdos, and I naturally have respect for weirdos. And so it's pissed me off that I'm thinking that they're using these two people that, you know, I have a little bit of respect for to lure me to Melbourne against my will, and I was not appreciative of that. So that's number one reason why I'm pissed off. The second reason that I'm pissed off is that Melbourne is by no means a day trip for me. I live in the ass crack of nowhere. For me to go to Melbourne, if you call me up at 7 a.m. and expect me to be there by lunchtime, you are delusional. It's not going to happen. Realistically, it is a 6-hour drive, straight drive, without stopping, from my front door to Sydney Airport. And then on top of that, that's just to get to the airport. I then have to get on the plane, which is a further 2-hour drive to Tullamarine Airport, which in itself is an hour outside the city. So put all that together, and that's only if I land at Tullamarine Airport. If I land in Geelong, God help me, I am not getting there in any way, shape, or form outside of miraculous apparition. It's not going to happen. And then I need to do the exact same trip reversed just to get home. It is not a cute little jaunt that you can just dream up the morning of spontaneously. It is a full-blown expedition. So I very passively aggressively, admittedly, explain this to Richard because he's an idiot and he should know all this because he's been out to my town half a dozen times. He knows exactly where it is and how far away it is from the rest of civilization. And he goes, well, what if we just get you a helicopter? It can pick you up locally, fly you to Melbourne, and then take you home at the end of the day. And I'm like, I'm sorry, has this always been an option? Have I been a complete and total idiot, a complete and total fool to be making a 24-hour round trip 4 times a year for multiple years on end when there has always been a 5-hour helicopter workaround available? Like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. Get the helicopter and I will come. So they did that and off I went, like an idiot. So I go and I get there, and it actually has nothing to do with me missing the conference. It's just the agent Briscoes wanted to give me an advent calendar. That's it. That's the whole purpose of me being flown out in a chartered helicopter to Melbourne, which, to be fair, them giving me an advent calendar is something that they have done every year for like the past 4 years. So I probably should have expected it. So in 2023, they got me this one, which is the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and Makeup Revolution London collaboration. And I love it. It is so cute. It smells amazing. The package is adorable. But unfortunately, my face is the Grinch and cannot tolerate joy at all. So I haven't really touched it that much, which is why it's still all in the box and I still have the box. And this is what it looks like on the inside. It's so cute. That eyelash gel isn't included. That's just fallen in there over the years. But that year they also got me the Wizard of Oz Makeup Revolution London collaboration, which is why that palette and that brush is in there. It also came with another brush and also a lip oil that I've used to death, so I no longer have. But that was very nice of them as well. Then there was last year. So last year was a disaster. They brought me the Gilmore Girls advent calendar, or at least they thought they brought me the Gilmore Girls calendar, but it ended up being a bootlegged one, and it was the funniest thing ever. I'm actually pretty certain that I still have a doggy bag of all the stuff that I got from the event calendar. Well, most of the stuff. Some of it I did throw in the bin because it was literal trash. Like one of the days you open the little door and it was just a clear plastic disposable coffee stirrer, like the ones that you get when you get a takeaway coffee from a cafe. And I threw that in the bin because what was the point of keeping that? There was nothing branded on it remotely at all. It was literally a disposable coffee stirrer. So I threw that in the bin, but I kept a lot of it even though it was trash because it made me happy and it made me smile. I think a lot more than an actual proper advent calendar would have. So I've got it laying around here somewhere, partly because I'm a hoarder, so let me go see if I can't find it. I found it. This is it. This is the bootleg Gilmore Girls calendar, and I love it so much. Like, look, it's literally just a little thing of Post-its. Just one that you would find anywhere. There is no branding on it whatsoever. So this year, for this year's Christmas, they got me a Wicked advent calendar, which is still in my cart. And no, I'm not going to go and get it and open it because I'm going to open it in December because it is a Christmas advent calendar, not a November calendar. Duh. But, and there is a but here, I don't understand for the life of me why people keep giving me Wicked merchandise. This is like the second year running for Christmas and birthdays and everything in between. People just keep gifting me Wicked stuff, and I don't understand why. Now, do not get me wrong. I am not by any stretch of the imagination a Wicked hater. I've seen the movie. I've seen the stage play about 5 different times. I love Cynthia. She is a complete and total goddess, and if you don't like her, you are wrong and also probably very, very boring. However, I am not by any stretch of the imagination a Wicked superfan, and yet if you looked at all the things I've been gifted over the last 2.5 years, you'd be forgiven for thinking that I was. So I think the confusion comes about for 2 main reasons. Number 1, I do love The Wizard of Oz. I am a huge Wizard of Oz fan, always have been, because it was one of the very few movies that was legal when I was growing up. So The Wizard of Oz, Titanic, Willy Wonka, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and bizarrely, the entire Alien franchise, which I will never understand the reason behind that, but that was also legal. And so I think what happens is that people confuse my love of The Wizard of Oz with a Wicked obsession, and they are not remotely the same thing. And secondly, when the first movie came out, I went feral, trying to get my hands on the Alphabet suitcase from the Bayes collaboration, and I mean, I hunted for that thing. I went into every online store and in-person store and pulled every single contact, including, the agents Briscoe. I asked them if they could get me one, and they did find me a link. So that's, again, very thankful for them. They don't have to do that. But it's not because it was a wicked collaboration. It's because I genuinely loved the suitcase. I would have loved it just as much had it been a Shrek collaboration. But now everybody just thinks that I'm the wicked girl. Anyway, all that aside, I do appreciate the calendar. It is a nice tradition, and it makes me feel like I am a high-functioning hostage, which I guess is exactly what I am, so yay for us. I go down to Melbourne, and I meet the agents Briscoe, and do you know the very first thing that they say to me when I get there? They say that they want to go and get some lunch, which in theory is fine, but where do they want to go? They want to go, as Americans, they want to go to Five Guys. Why do they want to go to Five Guys? I have no idea, because again, they are Americans. They can get Five Guys whenever and wherever they want. You're in Melbourne, go get some dumplings. That's what Melbourne is for. But no, they are committed to the idea that what they want is some mid-tier takeaway burgers. So, okay, we went to Five Guys. And also, the Briscoes are the weirdest people I know, which is saying something, because I know some real weirdos, but they are in a league of their own. Not only do they have matching names, they also have matching haircuts. Just full-on Zac Efron High School Musical era haircuts. And also, one of the Briscoes doesn't have eyeballs. And honestly, I don't remember how we got onto the conversation, because it's not like it's the first time I've ever met him without eyeballs. He's not had eyeballs for a couple of years now. But we must have been talking something, because I asked it really snarkily. I asked him, how are you still working for DARPA when you don't have eyeballs? And I stand behind the question. But Agent Richard Briscoe A, he pipes up and he goes, oh my God, Casey, you can't ask people how they still have a job just because they don't have eyeballs. That's racist. First of all, it is not racist. He is a 30-something-year-old conventionally attractive white guy, besides the fact that he has no eyeballs. But again, put on some sunglasses, you won't know the difference. So it can't be racist. It is maybe, at a stretch, ableist. But even then, if you're going to accuse me of something, at least use the correct terminology. And secondly, I am very pro disabled people being employed. I fill in paperwork all the time for people with disabilities so that they can get accommodations in their place of employment. Like, I am very down for it. However, and I say this respectfully, I think there is a huge difference between a blind person working, say, in Target, and someone with no eyeballs being a special agent at DARPA, especially when the reason that the person has no eyeballs is his own fault in the first place. So up until that point, it had been a pretty lovely lunch hour. We'd had a good time. But then things got weird because of the whole eyeball situation. And that's how they got me. And credit where credit is due. They are very, very good at their job. So in an effort to, move away from the whole he doesn't have eyeballs conversation that we got into in a completely normal and non-suspicious manner, they ended up asking me the reason why I didn't go to the conference. And so I told them the truth. I told them that I am physically and mentally exhausted, pretty much burnt out at this point, and I am sick of the constant expectations and the ever-changing obligations that I have towards everyone and everything, and that I work so hard. I work so much. I work 6 days every single week without fail. I am at work 6 days a week, and I get taxed into oblivion for the privilege of doing so, which is fine. I am happy to contribute. But what I'm not happy with is the expectation that I work 60 to 80-hour weeks in an average week. And then sometimes in a bad week, which are becoming increasingly common, I am working up to and sometimes over 100 hours. I have legitimately done shifts that have stretched to about 40 hours without a break. What is work-life balance? I don't know the meaning of those words. I am burnt out. I'm getting increasingly burnt out just from work without the added expectations of everything else that I need to do. And it doesn't help matters in any way, shape, or form that I am not someone who is passionate about medicine. I never wanted to be a doctor in the first place. I became a doctor because my mother was a doctor, and expectations are one hell of a drug. I dissociate for about 70% of my working hours, and then I come home and I am mentally and physically drained, and I get maybe 3 hours of half-conscious downtime before I have to go to bed so I can get up in the morning and do it all over again. Every day of my life is Groundhog Day, just with much worse weather. And then every few months, they drag me out to one of these conferences just so they can interrogate me about why aren't I doing more of this, and why can't I give an example of that, and why haven't I joined this committee or started this initiative or saved the world with my own two bare hands while humming Taylor Swift songs and performing circus acts. It's so stupid. It is bureaucracy in its most deranged, pathetic form, because what they've essentially done is locked me down into a job that is not of my choosing, where they siphon off 75% of my income for no reason, for no good reason, and then they try to guilt me on my one day off and the 3 semi-conscious hours I have each night to perform cultural cosplay for them. And the hilarious part of it is that I would do it. I would do it in a heartbeat. I would absolutely do it without a shred of a doubt. If that was the only thing that they were asking of me to do, it would be done. I would make Mother friggin' Teresa look like Ozzy Osbourne. I would do all the prayers, and I would do all the rituals, and I'd light all the candles. Hell, I would even throw in a few Lavaggio blessings. I would sit down every single Saturday afternoon and have afternoon tea with the portrait of Robin Williams. That is how committed I would be to the part. I would even pretend that I could not speak English. I would speak in broken English 24 hours a day, if that is all that they were asking me to do. But I can tell you right now what I'm not doing, and that is that I'm not doing both. I'm either going to be working my job that I'm contractually obligated by them to do, or I'm going to be doing the cultural cosplay for their entertainment. They don't get to have both. They need to choose one, because what I'm not doing come hell or high water is I'm not working a 40-hour shift at their request to then come home and cook a traditional meal and journal away in my grimoire like I'm a monk before somehow finding the time to squeeze in a huge workout to keep myself fighting fit just because they want me to. There's not enough time. And even if there was enough hours in the day, I still wouldn't do it. Why would I do it? Because here's the flip side to that, the other factor that comes into play. I am not naturally a fat person. I lose weight incredibly quickly when I want to. And in fact, it actually takes quite a bit more for me than the average person to put on weight. With as much food as I eat and as little activity that I currently do, I should easily scientifically be a good 150 to 200 pounds heavier than I am. But even as a certified fatty at the moment, given my history, I know for a fact that I have great stamina and incredible flexibility. And so if for whatever reason I needed to reach my physical peak, I feel pretty confident that I could regain it in about a 9-month period. But then again, why would I? We go back to that point. There is no motivation for me to do anything beyond the bare minimum in my town. Like, who am I getting dressed up nicely for? What's the point of doing my hair beyond basic hygiene levels? Who am I getting dolled up for? Friggin' Trevor with his swaying, dangling testicles bouncing off the back of his ute? I don't think so. Where I am right now in my day-to-day life, the only thing that makes things even remotely tolerable is eating junk food and watching movies and reading books. That's it. I have no motivation for anything else. I certainly have no motivation to get fit or put in any effort beyond that point. There is no external reason to try. I have no emotional bandwidth to engage in culture, my culture or anyone else's culture, in any meaningful capacity. And pretending that I do, that wouldn't benefit me at all. It'd purely be for optics, for their checkbox, for their satisfaction, and for their glory. It's not for me. And I'm not doing it, not at my expense. If they want a cultural cosplay, then frankly, they need to move me somewhere where I have both the time and the resources to do it. But as it currently stands, I can either work 80 hours a week or I can perform their little cultural puppet show. I can't do both, and I refuse to do both. So that's where we stand. But actually, as for today's video, I am going to do a little bit of cultural cosplay because I'm going to go out and grab some fresh herbs, and I'm going to bring you along with me because why the hell not?